The Heinkel He-177 was a long-range heavy bomber flown by the Luftwaffe during World War II. The introduction of the He-177 to combat operations was significantly delayed, by both problems with the development of its engines and frequent changes to its intended role. Nevertheless, it was the only long-range, heavy bomber to become operational with the Luftwaffe during the war. The He-177 had a payload and range capability similar to that of four-engined heavy bombers used by the Allies in the European theater. Beset by technical difficulties in development, the He-177 had a troubled history in service. Unduly demanding design requirements of long-range, high-speed, heavy bomb load, and the formerly required dive bombing capability compounded the problems. Although the He-177 officially entered service in 1942, it was far from operational. In an assessment of the aircraft on April 9, 1942, the newly activated Erprobungsstaffel or Test Squadron 177 reported that the aircraft had good flying characteristics, but had unacceptable engine troubles and problems with its airframe strength. The first operational Luftwaffe unit, the 1. Group of Bomber Wing 50 with 3 squadrons was formed in July 1942 at the Brandenburg airfield. Crews arrived from the 10th Squadron of Bomber Wing 40, the primary maritime patrol unit of any size within the Luftwaffe. It is best remembered as the unit operating a majority of the four-engine Focke-Wulf FW-200 Condor maritime patrol bombers. At the same time, a 4th squadron was also set up. These 4 squadrons were the first to be equipped with the new Heinkel He-177 and were intended to test and further develop this four-engine bomber aircraft. Some of the Heinkel 177s came from the Arado assembly plant located near the airfield. The 1st Group and the 4th Squadron operated from Brandenburg airfield until December 1942. The aim of these first months of its existence was to test the four-engine Heinkel He-177, which still had many technical problems. But due to the rapid events in the south of the Eastern Front, the 1. Group had to stop the evaluation of the aircraft and had to move with 27 He-177A-1 aircraft to Zaporizhia, in the south of the Soviet Union, in December 1942. From there the unit took part in supplying the Stalingrad pocket from the air. On November 19, 1942, the Red Army launched Operation Uranus. The attacking Soviet units under the command of General Nikolai Vatutin consisted of 3 complete armies, the 1st Guards Army, 5th Tank Army and 21st Army, including a total of 18 infantry divisions, 8 tank brigades, 2 motorized brigades, 6 cavalry divisions and 1 anti-tank brigade. On November 20, a 2nd Soviet offensive was launched to the south of Stalingrad against points held by the Romanian 4th Army Corps. The Romanian forces, made up primarily of infantry, were overrun by large numbers of tanks. The Soviet forces raced west and met on November 23 at the town of Kalach, sealing the ring around Stalingrad. The link-up of the Soviet forces, not filmed at the time, was later reenacted for a propaganda film which was shown worldwide. The surrounded Axis personnel comprised 265,000 Germans, Romanians, Italians, and Croatians. In addition, the German 6th Army included between 40,000 volunteer auxiliaries, a term used for personnel recruited amongst Soviet prisoners and civilians from areas under occupation. Adolf Hitler had declared in a public speech on September 30, 1942 that the German army would never leave the city. At a meeting shortly after the Soviet encirclement, German army chiefs pushed for an immediate breakout to a new line on the west of the Don. But Hitler was at his Bavarian retreat of Obersalzberg in Berchtesgaden with the head of the Luftwaffe, Hermann Göring. When asked by Hitler, Göring replied, after being convinced by Hans Jeschenek, the chief of staff of the German Air Force, that the Luftwaffe could supply the 6th Army with an air bridge. This would allow the Germans in the city to fight on temporarily while a relief force was assembled. A similar plan had been used a year earlier at the Demyansk pocket, albeit on a much smaller scale, a corps at Demyansk rather than an entire army. As an emergency measure, The He-177 heavy bombers were also used to supply the encircled 6th Army at Stalingrad, where it was found to be unsuited for the transport role, carrying little more cargo than the smaller and more reliable Heinkel He-111, and proving useless for the evacuation of wounded. During the first precautionary mission on January 16, 1943, the commander of the first group of Bomber Wing 50, Major Kurt Skeed, was killed when he was shot down by flak in his Heinkel He-177A-1 on the flight to Gumrak. As a result, the He-177s reverted to bombing and flak suppression missions near Stalingrad. Only 13 missions were flown, and 7 He-177s were lost to fire without any action attributable to the enemy. In addition to carrying a variety of bombs, the He-177 was tested with a number of unorthodox offensive armaments. When assigned to flak suppression sorties in the area of Stalingrad during the winter of 1942, Luftwaffe forward maintenance units modified a small number of He-177A3s, fitting a 50mm Bordkanone BK-5 cannon with a 21-round magazine within the aircraft's undernose bola gondola, with the long barrel protruding well forward, beyond the glazed fishbowl nose. This variant was unofficially dubbed the Stalingrad type. Although a small number of He-177A03/R5 models were to be built from scratch, with the larger PaK-40-based, auto-loading 75mm Bordkanone BK-7, 5cm autocannon in the bola location fitted with its 12-round magazine, structural problems caused by the 75mm weapon's recoil meant that the Stalingrad type did not see combat use outside of the original, BK-5 armed handful. At the end of January 1943, the group returned to Brandenburg. In the first half of 1943, the group trained with the new Heinkel HS-293, a radio-controlled glide bomb intended primarily for use against ships. On October 25, 1943, the 1. Group of Bomber Wing 50 with its 14 He-177A-1 and 2 He-177A-3 became the second group of Bomber Wing 40. The 4. Squadron with its 6 He-177A-1 changed their designation in the 17th Squadron of Bomber Wing 40. On November 26, 1943, a He-177 sank the British troop transport Rana off the Algerian coast with a HS-293 gliding bomb. At 12:30 on November 25, 1943, Rana and 4 other troop ships left Oran in French Algeria. About 16:30 the next day off Bougie, the convoy was attacked by 14 Luftwaffe Heinkel He-177A heavy bombers escorted by Junkers Ju-88 aircraft, followed by between 6 and 9 torpedo bombers. At the time, the convoy had a limited air escort of 4 land-based Free French Air Force Spitfires. Later in the course of the attack, they were relieved by RAF Spitfires. The He-177s carried Heinkel HS-293 radio-guided, rocket-boosted glide bombs, almost 30 of which they launched at the convoy. The convoy's combined anti-aircraft fire seems to have impeded most of the attackers' attempts to guide their glide bombs onto their targets. Rana's gunners contributed with her machine guns, autocannons, and about 20 rounds from her 12-pounder gun. The convoy shot down at least 2 aircraft and damaged several others. Rana was the only casualty. At about 5 p.m. an He-177A released a glide bomb that hit Rana on her port side at the after end of her engine room and No. 6 troop deck. Men poured on deck, many of them badly wounded. More than 1,100 people were killed, most of whom were U.S. troops. 8 of the attacking Heinkel He-177s were shot down as well. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and to make sure you don't miss my future work, please make sure you are subscribed to my channel and press the bell notification button. Thank you and see you in the next video.